end of December. For those who don't know, Storyraise is a solution for organizations to create personalized digital reports and videos. With the digital report, you can increase engagement with your donors and ultimately raise more funds. If you want to see a sample digital report made just for you and your organization, click the link in the chat to automatically create one. Today, we'll be talking about donor thank you techniques that drive retention for community foundations. Development professionals know that thanking donors matters a lot. Donors want to feel seen, to feel appreciated, and connected to the impact of their giving. A generic thank you letter may check a box, but it doesn't necessarily build lasting relationships that inspire continued support. You need meaningful stewardship in order to accomplish that. The challenge, of course, is scale. Development teams are being asked to create more personalized donor experiences with less time, less resources, and less staff. That's where data and technology can make all the difference. To help us explore what's working today, we have an outstanding leader in the field, Jason Robbins from version 2 AI. Jessie Gunn from Would Be Community Foundation was also supposed to be here, but unfortunately she's under the weather today and is not able to attend. So Jason's going to hold down the fort for us. And we wish Jessie a very speedy recovery. But in the meantime, we'll keep it going and we'll start talking about donor thank you techniques. Jason, are you ready to get started?
I'm ready to get started. Let's do it.
All right. Before we dive in, why don't we have you introduce yourself? Just give everyone a little
Sure.
background as to who you are, what you do for version 2 AI.
Yeah, great. This is my 32nd year in fundraising.
Oh.
I grew up around the kitchen table learning about fundraising best practices. I know that sounds weird, but my dad was a pioneer of direct mail fundraising. He ran a
Mm.
company called LW Robbins Associates, which became incorporated over time into RKD Direct. So it's a large direct marketing shop. Um, Over that period of time, 32 years, I've been a frontline fundraiser. I was a direct mail consultant. Also, probably the latter half of my career more in tech and analytics. But I've always had a hand in fundraising, both through my personal philanthropy. I'm on the board of our local Y here, and through my professional experience. I joined Givesy in version 2 in September of 24, just as we launched our first virtual engagement officer. We'll introduce you, talk a little bit about that technology, how we basically reverse engineered what a good gift officer might do to engage donors, but we're doing it using AI.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about it. And why don't we start with just really zoom out and give everyone the full picture, if you will. So when you think about donor retention, how important is that thank you experience? And what's the connection between stewardship, which we talk so much about, and long-term giving that just keeps
Yeah.
going and going?
Yeah, all of those things. It's paramount to success, right? It's not the golden rule, right? Donor makes a gift, you have to thank them. You have to give them a tax receipt, of course. But there's opportunity in a thank you. And so what I'd ask everyone to think about, and you can even chart this out, think about what we do at the major gift level, right? Usually there's fairly good protocols in place if a donor makes a gift of $50,000 out of the blue. What's going to happen next? Well, they're probably likely to get a call from the C-suite or at least a major gift officer. In that call, sure, we're going to thank the donor, of course, but we're also going to gently probe and actively listen, right? So we're going to ask about, why, what inspired that gift? Is there a particular part of our mission that inspires them? Um, why did they join the organization? Who are they? Who do they know? What's their background? We're learning a little bit about that donor, right? Ultimately, we're going to make another solicitation down the line. But if you think about that, what's going to happen next month after we've thanked our $50,000 donor? Well, they're probably going to get a call, again, thanking them, but also, learning more about them, right? Because
Mm.
it's about the connection with the organization. That's what a major gift officer is, right? The conduit of that connection between the org and the donor. So think about that, chart it out. What do you do when a donor makes a transformational gift? Then think about what if a donor makes a $500 gift? or $100 gift. Think about the journey that happens there, right? Um, it's hard to do at scale to have those personal relationships, but what if you could? What if you could? What would that do down the line? Not only for retention, but really tapping into the capacity of that individual donor. So chart that out too. What happens when a donor gives $100? Because most organizations, even the ones that do it very well, they might have, a volunteer phone bank or people calling that donor to thank them. They might send a new donor welcome kit. They're, of course, going to acknowledge the gift, but there's no feedback loop. We're not learning much about that donor. If you can do that, um, then you have a chance. You have a better chance of renewing that relationship or renewing that gift, and also upgrading that donor as well down the line. But it has to be consistent. So then map out, same project, chart out what happens in month two, three for a
Mhm.
$100 donor. For most of us, they fall into just a direct mail stream, right? And if there's a way to better engage them, that's what you want to be able to do. It's really hard to do at scale.
Oh yeah, definitely, right? To create so many one-on-one relationships with thousands of donors.
Yeah.
I mean that's difficult, and I think that's where version 2 AI comes in and helps to lighten the load, because it is quite a burden to have a portfolio and to have that ongoing relationship with each person. And like you said earlier, there's got to be more than those touch points throughout the year asking for a gift. You got to check in with them and actually form that connection, form that friendship, so they know that you care and that your care for the organization continues to grow.
Yeah, and you're stewarding that gift as well, right? You're stewarding the
Mhm.
donor, but you're also stewarding that gift, meaning impact stories about what that gift meant for that specific project, right? And, if you can do that, the donor becomes part of the community.
Mhm.
They become part of the organization if you do it appropriately, well, and timely.
Right. Very important. Two very important things, well and timely. So given your experience in this space, I know you've been in the space for 30 plus years, and also grew up in it too, which is not something that I hear very often. So that's a unique experience in itself. I'd love for you to share an example of a thank you strategy or maybe a stewardship initiative that's worked particularly well. And if there's more than one, because you just can't choose, feel free to share more than one example.
Shauna, would it be okay to share my screen?
Yeah, please.
All right, let me do that. And I'll make sure that everyone can see that. Yes?
Yep, I can see
Okay,
it.
great. So, what we're helping organizations do in this program with our virtual engagement officers is really move slightly away from that one-to-many approach. What you're seeing on the left, it's a acknowledgement. It's in text form. Um, but as a sort of an industry, we've gotten better and better, certainly over the 32 years I've been in it, at personalizing messages. But if you look at this type of engagement or acknowledgement, it is kind of a one-way street. There is no feedback loop built into this. Sure, we're using their first name and sharing the gift amount, and it could even talk about the specific campaign or initiative that gift is being used for. We might share impact, but we're not learning anything about the donor. What you're seeing on the right is actually a VEO having, or a virtual engagement officer having a conversation with the donor. Our virtual engagement officers at baseline are trained on fundraising best practices. They've read all the books that we've read, they've read all the articles that we've read. Um, what it does is it manages a portfolio, large portfolio of 1,000 donors. And it thinks using machine learning about each individual donor at the individual level. This donor, Sarah, just made a gift. What is my next best step? As a fundraiser, I have to thank the donor, but it doesn't end there. Like what a major gift officer might do, or your CEO when they have a conversation with the donor. Probe gently, ask open-ended questions, begin learning about those donors. Now, we don't work with major donors in this program. It's usually the line below which we have the capacity to have one-to-one conversations or engagements with donors, but we found a ton of donors do respond. They've never been asked before. In your intro, Shauna, you mentioned, making sure the donor knows that they're seen. We take that a step further. We want the donor to know that they can be heard. And
Mm,
if you can do that, you're going to begin to learn more about the individual behind the gift, as well as start to strengthen that relationship. Just to finish this off, each client that we build a virtual engagement officer for, we build a unique knowledge base. It is learning historical information like history, mission impact, the stories that you're sharing, who the people are, the links that might want to be shared. They're also learning in near real time. And so as things happen at the organization, they're knowledgeable about them. If they get asked a question about an upcoming event, how to volunteer, how to make a gift, can I become a sustainer? It knows where that information is and can relay that to the donor. But in this case, it can also share gift impact. And so as you look at this example, Pasadena Community Foundation had the wildfires out in Pasadena. They did a wonderful job on the wildfire response. Um, this donor makes a response. This is generated in about 10 seconds. It's reviewed by our human eyes before it goes out to ensure it's mission consistent. But what does it do? Your gift helped us provide emergency housing and meal kits to displaced families. It's not going to make another ask immediately, nor would a good fundraiser. It's going to thank that donor profusely, but also try to engage them further. And so you see where the direction this conversation might go, right? Would you like to learn more about our emergency preparedness? Pasadena Community Foundation does a lot of great things in the community. It's not all about emergency response. So how do we continue to share information that's going to be relevant to this specific donor and the 999 other donors in that portfolio to ensure that they'll renew their support and they'll find an appropriate place to hopefully increase their philanthropy.
great. Thank
I
you
don't
for
know if that
sharing.
specifically answered the question, but I hope it did.
No, it did. This is a great example as to how you can use technology and data to really streamline your processes and to make sure that you're engaging with the right people at the right times, without losing that human touch, right? I love how you said, you're having human eyes look at this text, make sure that
Yeah.
it's mission aligned. That's an important piece that, of course, we can't lose. So
It's hugely important, particularly with AI, right?
yes.
It can't be unattended, though, we call this autonomous fundraising. It's important to have, a human in the loop, and that's the term they use in AI speak. But um, you got to make sure that you're sharing relevant information with that specific donor. Sharing dates, they have to be spot checked. Sharing statistics, they have to be spot checked as
Yeah,
well.
of course.
Yeah.
And beyond the initial thank you for your gift, which of course we know is important, what are some effective ways different organizations can keep saying thank you throughout the year, even if it's not necessarily through what you just showed,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
with updates, but to just keep making sure that this organization remains in a person's mind.
Yeah, from a direct marketing perspective, it could be through personalization, right?
Hmm.
And thinking about if you made a gift to a specific campaign or initiative, to reference that. Last fall you helped support this initiative. You can always reference that, and it shares with the donor that you see them, you really see them, you know what they've done, and you know what their interests are, and then you can build off of that. In this program, we're naturally, really consistently messaging those donors, always using open-ended questions to find out where they are currently in their donor journey. But it's
Hmm.
that consistency that needs to happen, right? We do a great job of that in direct marketing, right? We set up our calendar, we know exactly what's going to happen. The best relationships that major gift officers have, they're in constant communication with the members of their portfolios as assigned. Um,
Hmm.
and they're reaching out, hey, just to check in. And that's good too, because it shows to that donor that you care about them. You're acknowledging their existence and their importance to the organization. And if you can do that consistently, that's really where the transformational giving can happen.
Hmm. Definitely. And I know we touched on this a little already with the previous example that you showed, but where do you see automation playing a role in donor stewardship? And where is that human element still very much essential? And you can take us
Yeah.
through a few examples too, if you like. I'm sure you have loads.
I have loads of examples. I'll take this from the lens of our virtual engagement officer program. We, you know, overall, we never think that the human relationship can be replaced by AI. That's first and foremost. Where true transformational giving happens, major gifts, that is the job of a human. We have to connect with those individuals. Again, we operate sort of below the line of what would a gift that would naturally uh, fall into a major gift officer's portfolio by the size of the gift. Um, Automation can play a huge role in that, meaning you really have to have that consistency of contact, right? And so I was a major gift officer at Manhattan College in the Bronx. I had a portfolio of 100 donors. Um, I sometimes struggled because I wore a lot of different hats. And so I'd get to the next month and say, "Oh, I should have done this with my all of my portfolio members in the prior month." Um, Now, talking about the technology and where a human might need to be in the loop, right? These virtual engagement officers are operating autonomously. They can answer most inquiries. There are some inquiries that'll fall outside of its knowledge base. That sort of needs to be triaged by a human. But what happens is a lot of these donors have never had a one-to-one conversation. They've never had the opportunity to answer those open-ended questions. What it sometimes yields, and this happened with one of our clients twice in about a 3-month span, donor said, "Hey, did you know I've already named you in my estate plan?" It's a great thing to know. No, we didn't. Um, but at that point, every org has a place where they're kind of comfortable with AI operating, and then places where it's sort of a natural handoff moment. So when those conversations happen between a donor and our technology, the virtual engagement officer, the virtual engagement officer reached back out, shared the conversation, and said, "I think this is about plan giving. Would you like to get involved?" And of course, the primary point of contact at the organization said, "Yes, we would love to get involved." Thank that donor profusely for their amazing commitment to the organization, but also share the benefits of our plan giving society. And, maybe get a story from them about why they've done that, why they've made such an extraordinary commitment. Um,
Mhm.
so yes, there's always places where a human should be in the loop. And of course, if ever a donor says, "I'd rather talk to a person," that's a natural moment as well. Um, it's just creating the really the technology to support those natural handoff moments and encouraging it.
Mhm. Great. And for organizations who maybe they just don't know where to start, but they're slowly warming up to the idea of using more technology, incorporating data and learning new systems and processes that maybe they're again just not so familiar with. What's a first step, an easy first step that they can take to get their feet wet and start to become familiar and comfortable in this world?
Yeah, and I think it almost starts at what your ideal state might look like. What would you
Mhm.
like to do? If you were a donor, what would you like to hear? And then think about it from the data perspective. Do we have, good record keeping on that type of information that we would love to be able to reference, even if it's through, an automated, direct marketing, either appeal or newsletter or a thank you, right? And so it's almost kind of working backwards from that ideal state towards the data, towards the mechanism in order to achieve the automation or to achieve an automation that's more personalized than perhaps what you're doing today. There are a lot of platforms out there, right? From CRM platforms to marketing platforms. Um, there's a cost associated with each. Some do it better than others do it. But I really think independent of the size of the organization or your budget, it's really thinking about how do we live by that golden rule, and what can we do based on our current staff, and our current systems to elevate that experience for that donor.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of different forms. You know, if I respond to an e-appeal, maybe it's an email. If I respond to a direct mail and I can afford the time, maybe it's a handwritten note or something like that to that donor. It just really depends on your capacity, your budget, and your systems as they exist now. And is it time to shop for a new one?
That's all great advice. I feel oftentimes organizations get very overwhelmed by thinking, I got to do an overhaul of my system. So it's good to break it down into bite-sized chunks and also think about what's realistic for us to do right now, given our budget, given our time constraints. What can we do in month one versus month 12, and being strategic about it so it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing I would say is for every organization, there probably is some staff time available to carve out to do those personal touches. That's really
Mhm.
where, you really start building well, long-term relationships with those donors. Start at
Mhm.
the highest level, of course, and work your way down. Um, but it's also thinking about other resources that you might have from volunteers or other staff members to get in a room, put a nice spread out, maybe some food, and just start
Yep.
writing together, right? So it really depends org to org, but there's always ways of improving that and an acknowledgement process in how we're thanking our donors and stewarding both them and their gifts is a great place to start.
All right, great. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. So I'll leave us here. Jason, thank you so much. This was really helpful and insightful, and learning more about version 2 AI will hopefully give people some peace of mind knowing that there's additional tools out there to help them work through some of this portfolio management and engaging with more donors. So thank you again for your time and just for a great conversation. To learn more about version 2 AI, you all can click the link in the LinkedIn live chat. And one more plug for that sample digital report I mentioned earlier. If you want to see a sample digital report made just for you and for your organization, go ahead and click the link in the chat to automatically create one. If you have any questions about Storyraise or anything we discussed during our webinar today, you can reach out to me at shauna@storyraise.com. We're so glad you all could join us for this next installment of Boost. Stay tuned for our October session. That'll be on October 7th. We'll have experts from LSU Foundation and Version 2 AI to talk about end of year giving for higher ed. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks again, Jason. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.